Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. Last time I tried using the phone, I tried taking off like the rubber casing around it to see if that would help the sound, and that didn't work at all. I still had the bad sound clipping in and out. So we're going back to using GarageBand sound, and we're gonna paste that on top of this video. So if you have any idea why a phone would have that like audio clipping in and out, let me know and maybe I can troubleshoot that. But I think this solution will work. So we're looking at anonymous noise number four. And at first, maybe for like the whole first half of this manga, I wasn't thinking I would do a review on it because I've done one, two, three, and I don't like repeating the same things over and over again. And then four delivered so well that it gave me something to talk about. And kind of the overarching theme of this thesis is that a good artist communicates their passion for their craft and their observations of life through their art. So the artist is Ryoko Fukuyama, who I've praised her for her comedy writing. It was really her success at comedy writing that convinced me to give this, teeny bopper, J-pop, effeminate boy band manga a chance. And then once she used the humor to kind of lead me on, then she got me hooked with the actual story. So she's an experienced artist who's done 30 manga, and what I think Anonymous Noise is this is sort of Ryoko Fukuyama's wisdom and experience about being an artist, being expressed through characters whose art is music. So, Anonymous Noise number four. What have I said about one through three? Well, my first one, I was kind of like weirded out by it. I thought it was really silly and funny, but I didn't really get it. I kind of talked about it as being a guilty pleasure or being sort of a campy Adam West Batman style classic. In two and three, I talked about how it was building on the themes and it was consistently delivering the gags. So for number four, I think this is the point in the series where it's getting even funnier. So the humor's getting even better. I'm laughing even more consistently and louder, and I'm actually laughing out loud. Sometimes when you're reading a manga, you kind of do the silent laugh because you don't want people thinking you're weird and laughing in public at a book. So you know what you do. You kind of like you play the laughter in your head and you have the response of what would have been laughter, but then you contain it. And then sometimes not only does it get me to do that a lot, then I actually start laughing because it's so consistent then you can't even control that response. One of the funniest writers I've ever read. The other thing this is doing is building on all the themes, upping the game, and this is transformed. This is transformed from being a silly book that I recommend to being a really, really, really high recommendation because in this volume we see Nino Arisugawa demonstrate agency and make decisions that are important and make sense for her character. The tragedy, I think, of a lot of manga and a lot of popular stories in general is if you look at them with the feminist lenses on, you can find things that are problematic that would make great fodder for a Mary Sue article complaining about patriarchy. For example, both of the boys in Nino Arisugara, aka Alice, because Arisu sounds like Alice, so I'll just call her Alice. Both of the boys in Alice's life are somewhat possessive of her, and I think these are portrayed as negative character traits within the story of the manga. Alice is also a little bit ditzy and a little bit too straightforward. So in a kind of radical feminist blog worldview, you could take little scenes out of context and say, oh look what a ditz she is. Oh, look how possessive and mean the boys are. This is teaching girls patriarchy. And I think that perspective would then miss what's a really awesome example of a female character showing agency, making decisions, which is the climax of this one. The other interesting thing about Volume 4 is it's starting to build the other characters apart from the main three. So on the front here, we've got my boy Haruyoshi, who before was just sort of like a comedic, effeminate guy in the background who'd sometimes say like little effeminate things. And he's on the cover of this for a reason, because this is a fairly Haruyoshi-centric volume. And it's also a exposition-heavy volume. Haruyoshi tells Alice the story of the band from the other band members' perspective, because Alice knows about when she met Yuzu when she was young, but she doesn't know about how the J-pop band got together. So as Yoshi is telling the story, we are getting some hints of his character, and he actually becomes a full-fledged character in the course of this volume. So the hook for this is Anonymous Noise number 4 has everything that SJW Marvel's Iceman lacked. SJW Marvel's Iceman took Bobby Drake, a character with a long established history, and since he's become gay, seemingly suddenly because Jean Grey seemed to have like manipulated his mind into being gay. Not only that, he's also like awful '90s sitcom gay, and he's very effeminate, he's very cheesebally, and he's kind of nasty to people. Now, one of the weirdest things about the social justice left is how much time they spend complaining about rape culture and patriarchy in Japanese comics and video games. Like, if you were to ask me, hey, number one Marmaduke fan, how would you have social justice take over the world? I would say make all the kids read manga, because they would keep reading about like all of these effeminate boys and masculine women and transvestites who are all like these wonderful magical princesses in Japan. And then congratulations, you would make the entire country successfully propagandized in LGBTQ. But the new left dislikes this kind of story because it sees it as, I don't know, fetishizing, or I don't understand the new left. That's the problem. But what I think this is kind of an example of the old school tolerance message. I'm old enough to remember when the message of the new left was, let's be tolerant, right? And so if you boil that down, that sounds like a pretty good message. Yeah, I don't want to get in anybody's grill. I don't want to ruin anybody's life. I don't want to, smack them upside the head and ruin their life just because we disagree. But what tolerance was an avenue into getting us towards no tolerance. So we were supposed to be tolerant right up until Obergefell. And then the line became, we can't tolerate intolerance. So what Anonymous Noise is this is a tolerance message about an effeminate boy who's actually a real character with some real human pathos. But, and he's straight, actually. So you'd think he would be like a 90s gay stereotype, but he's actually straight. He just has these really effeminate mannerisms. But it makes him a real, genuine character. So this is a case study, I think, of how to write this type of character and not have them just be reduced to a bunch of silly effeminate mannerisms for a political message. If this was an SJW Marvel comic, there'd be like a guy in a red hat who'd come in and say, I don't like you effeminate commies, and then he'd punch him, and then he'd get dragged to like a literal KKK meeting, and the homeroom teacher was secretly part of the KKK, and it'd be just obnoxious and annoying. What Ryoko Fukuyama does is she explains who her characters are, and Haruyoshi goes from being kind of a silly comedic character in the background to becoming genuine. So I've marked the pink side. Okay, spoiler for volume 1 through 3. I'm going to talk about important moments. So you ready? Spoiler. Here we go. Yuzu mans up and kisses Alice. So Yuzu is sort of like the short creative genius, and he loves Alice, but I think he loves music more. And so this is making it difficult for him because he doesn't want his love for Alice to ruin the band and the relationship he has with her music. So Yuzu's kind of finally manned up and kissed her. And this of course is going to lead to all sorts of bonkers situations because now Alice knows that Yuzu digs her. Here I've marked, why did I mark this? I must have had an important reason for marking this. All right, so this is just a little example of comedy writing. Like Miyu notices that, oh, that's right, there's a soy joke. And I don't think this was intended to be like a, red pill soy joke, but Miyu just notices that Alice's shirt is on backwards and Yuzu's drinking soy milk when he always drinks regular milk. Look, that's not milk, it's soy. I like soy milk with coffee. I don't know, there's a lot of like added humor, I think, from some of these things. Like that would have been funny anyway, but it's become funnier since soy gags in 2016. What's an example of is comedy coming from a character moment. So they're kind of confused about their feelings and what just happened, so they're both out of sorts a little bit. So while Yuzu's trying to deal with the fallout of that, he has another back and forth with Momo, the tall, handsome, dashing boy from Alice's childhood. And I think Momo's kind of a bleepity bleep, But so I'm rooting for Yuzu in this situation. But what becomes clear is they both have a possessive attitude towards Alice. They both admire her voice. They both are inspired to create music because of her voice. And this leads them to be competitive to one another. So this is kind of where the, feminist rape culture stereotype comes in. Like, is this supposed to be telling you that it's good for you to be possessive of a girl? I don't think so. I think what this is an instance of is these are two men who have a flaw. They both love a woman. They're both inspired to create art because of this woman, but neither of them are very capable of dealing with their emotions or their feelings. And so this leads them to both of them to do something stupid in a different way. So Momo is doing something stupid by continually pushing Alice away because he's ashamed of himself. Yuzu's doing something stupid because he's not willing to be honest enough to admit to Alice how he feels because he doesn't want to lose making music with her. So they're both being foolish in their own unique way. But the thing is that they're not reducing Alice to an object of male desire. Alice is still a human being with her own thoughts, emotions, and decisions. And as we're going to see, this volume is very much about Alice coming to grips with who she is and making decisions for herself, which you would miss if all you were looking for was something to be triggered by. Would be the stuff that would trigger you. But then you'd miss the later stuff, which actually delivers you a genuine female character moment. So Haruyoshi then starts telling Alice his perspective on the story of how the band came together. And, there's some more, comedy writing. It shows Alice's commitment and passion. Like she really wants to be a good part of the band. So she almost sort of obsessively memorizes stuff about the band, and she can draw all of their t-shirts from memory, even though it's kind of like a scrawled drawing. And as Haruyoshi begins telling the story, it's in his sort of, suave, feminine, flamboyant manner. But as he tells it, we start getting perspective on the minor characters apart from the major characters, and they start to become more and more important. For example, we learned that the reason that Yuzuriha's nickname is Yuzu is they couldn't read his name that well, and they weren't sure which part was his surname and which part was his given name. So they just nicknamed him Yuzu at the hospital. They kind of helped arrange it so that Yuzu could break out and start writing music, because this is so cheesy. Like, Yuzu loves to make music, and his mom has banned music from the household. But here's what I'm talking about. So in this rewind in time, Haruyoshi has black hair. He hasn't dyed his hair blonde yet, and they make fun of him for saying fabulous all the time, and he gives a reason for why he says fabulous all the time, which is that he lives with 4 older sisters and 2 younger sisters. His divorced aunt and her daughter live with us, and his dad works away all the time. So he's always surrounded by a large group of women, and sometimes he picks up effeminate wording and that's just how he expresses himself. So what this means is that apart from just being like a effeminate bishi boy kind of stereotype, he has a reason for acting the way he is that's based on his upbringing. And it's great because now I have an understanding for why Haruyoshi is the way he is. So we're getting some context on who these other characters are while he's explaining something important to Alice about the origin of the band. Then, of course, now Alice remembers when she met Yuzu, of course. So now they're hearing from their perspective about when he first meets Yuzu. So he comes back to the hospital and he says, I found it. I found my voice. And this is great because this underscores everything that's important about Yuzu's character, which is that for him, Alice's voice is the prompt for him to begin writing music again in earnest. And even the way he says it, I found my voice, 2 meanings. He found his creative voice because Alice has prompted him to pursue his creative passions, and he views Alice as his voice. So he's not looking at her as a full person yet. He is looking at her voice as the thing which prompts his creative drives. So this is sort of the origin story of Yuzu's problem, which is that he loves Alice, but it's almost as if he loves Alice's voice and the inspiration he gets from Alice more than Alice as a person, which is why he then lies about his feelings and tries to hide from Alice how he really feels about her. So that the tragedy is already beginning, even in early childhood. And I just thought this was a great way of explaining in a way a child could understand the idea of finding creative energy or creative inspiration in a muse. I found my voice. So, oops, did I skip one? I love these little pink tags because they help me stay a little bit more focused. All right. So they bring Yuzu to a Japanese rock band. And what was important about this is what gives the band, this is what helps the band become a character and gives the minor characters in the band significance beyond just Alice's love triangle. So when Yuzu experiences the rock music, it speaks to him in a way that's parallel to the way Alice's voice spoke to him. And for the band, that music overpowered us. So in spite of like their little sort of childish squabbles, they realize that they have a shared connection with music. And that's where like this element of destiny that they're meant to play music comes into it. So now we have a feeling for what these other characters, what makes them tick, apart from just being little background comedy characters in the romance. And because Haruyoshi's been narrating this, we now come away with newfound respect for Haruyoshi's role in the band. So no longer will Haruyoshi just be sort of little comedic, effeminate guy. Now he's one of kind of like the core aspects holding the band together and sort of pointing Yuzu's sort of creative genius in the right direction so that they can actually begin making music. Now, what was I? Oh, yeah. The other really interesting thing about Ryoko Fukuyama is she really loves these S compositions. So you're supposed to start up here, and then go over here, and then go down here, and then go right, and then go down again, like that. And I think she does this a few times a chapter at least, and at first it was really hard for me to get it, because sometimes there'd be that thing where the dialogue is split up, so you wouldn't get that this is supposed to go down here. So what makes this one a better example is she has the bubble right here that brings you straight down into this panel, and then you naturally go that way. And oftentimes she'll also kind of like point her characters. This isn't a good example, but sometimes she'll have the character looking that way, so you know, okay, now I'm supposed to go that way. And then this little bubble here helps you, okay, now I'm supposed to go down here. It's really interesting. I think I'd noticed that before, but I've never seen an artist use this S composition quite as much as Ryoko Fukuyama. I think she really, really loves it and maybe consciously brings it into her into her comic compositions. All right, so this is the moment I was talking about where Nino Arisugara starts becoming a full-fledged character. So she sees her childhood sweetheart, the boy next door, Momo, in the locker room, and he's going to be moving away to a new school. And so at first she's kind of silent because the first time she tried to talk to him, he like firmly rebuffed her, kind of like pushed her away and said, "Do not talk to me." And he talks to her. And what's interesting about this is how well it averts certain stereotypes. So he kind of challenges her, well, if your band's so great, I'll tell you what, let's make a bet. If we get a bigger audience than your band at the rock concert, then you will quit in no hurry. And she says no. Like in most, stereotypical like Hollywood movies, she would say, "Oh yes, I take the bet. I will quit music forever if we lose at the rock concert." But her saying no to Momo makes a lot of sense here because In No Hurry has become her friend group, and In No Hurry has provided her with an outlet for music. So at first her connection to music was that she wanted to find Momo again. She had this childhood dream that if she just kept singing, she would one day find her long-lost childhood friend Momo. And now she's found her long-lost childhood friend, but he doesn't care about her, and he wants her out of his life because of his dumb attitude and his sort of toxic self-shame. But Alice stands up to him, and she says, "In No Hurry is the only thing I have to sing for now. No, I'll never take that bet." Yes! This makes sense for her character because her friends in the band are now a much more supportive group than Momo has ever been. She has the memory of Momo. I believe she still wants to speak to Momo and kind of shake him out of his, being a dick mode that he's in. But that's not the only thing that defines her or pushes her forward. Now, music herself and her appreciation for Yuzu's music is also pushing her forward. So she's a silly, kind of a ditzy blonde character, but she has dimensions and she makes decisions that are important and make sense for who she is. I loved how this subverted my expectations. I thought this was going to be the old, "Oh, boy, we gotta win at the rock concert and then everything will be happily ever after." But it's sort of, again, it's building on the themes established in previous volumes and taking that in a direction that makes sense. It doesn't make sense for Alice to make a bunch of little bets to try to fix everything with Momo. She's sort of having a difficult time accepting that she might not be able to fix the problem in Momo, so she's got to pursue her her interest in being a creative musician. So, fantastic. A female character with agency making a great decision. I love it. And that just builds the tension all the more. It builds the tension for when the two bands face off, more than if there was like a fake, I'll have to quit music if I lose. Now it might be possible that they actually lose this thing, right? If the main character says, I'll quit music forever if we lose at the rock band concert, then that's how you know that they're going to win the rock band concert, because of course the protagonist isn't going to quit music forever. Now I don't know what's going to happen, and I want to find out what's going to happen. So, Ryoko Fukuyama, she has a Tumblr. Go follow Ryoko Fukuyama's Tumblr. Okay, this is a person who gets sort of the... last time I described it as artists having... I don't know, like emotional turmoil, or I think maybe like pent up emotional frustration is another way of putting it. And so she hilariously channels that into Anonymous Noise. And she has characters with depth and variety who make decisions that are not just like, oh, this is the decision they're supposed to make at this point in the script, because that's what Hollywood says they're supposed to do. Her characters make decisions that are actually good decisions if you take into consideration the kind of people they are. So closed down the official site that I've been using for 10 years and started a Tumblr account instead. Tumblr has all the features that I've been wanting, so it felt weird that I hadn't been using it all along. Please drop by and take a look sometime. You should definitely do that. This is a gem. I want to go see the other manga this person did, but fabulous. So everything that SJW Marvel needs is in a book like Anonymous Noise, for a flamboyant character like Haruyoshi, for a strong female protagonist like Alice, but it's in the context of like rock bands playing hard music. It doesn't even need superheroes smacking into each other to deliver on the promises of a good old story with a lot of hilarity and some emotional stakes. So boom, boom, boom. This went right from silly guilty pleasure to genuine admiration. Ryoko Fukuyama, I can't wait to watch this anime. This is a gem. Anyway, I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. Love you guys. I'll catch you later.